Okay, welcome everyone to Zine Club, Los Angeles Public Library, here Mondays at 4. Today we have a guest speaker all about the Ontario Art Book Fair presentation titled here, Fan Phenomenon and Rise of Self-Publishing, the Fanzines and Zines. Thank you, Yesenia, for coming to give us a preview of what you can see in person if you want to attend on Saturday, March 29th. I'll be there as well, presenting in person, and it's a free fun event for all ages in Ontario, the city of Ontario, California. Okay, thank you. Take it away.
Thank you, Siba, for the introduction. Hi, everybody. My name is Yesenia, and I work with the Ontario City Library, and I am collaborating with the Ontario Museum, which is hosting the Art Book Fair at the end of the month, and then I'll provide more details at the end. In collaboration with them, I did prepare a presentation that kind of dives deep into the history of how zines originated and the way it's evolved throughout the decades. So I will be talking about that today. Again. So as we all know, zines are self-made, self-published works that encompass various mediums and art forms, and they can focus on many different themes. But prior to the initiation of zines, I'm going to take us back a little bit. In the late 19th and early 20th century, a lot of the topics of discussion revolved around science and inventions. And because people were interested in the connection between both topics, that's when people began to ask for science fiction genres and science fiction literature. So as it continued to boom, we began to see many different fans expressing interest in the sci-fi realm. Hugo Gernsback, who was a 20th century inventor, here we do see him with one of his inventions. He was wearing what was like a radio TV goggle set. He actually published in 1926 and founded some of the first sci-fi magazines. The first sci-fi magazine he published was Amazing Stories, and because of that, he became a pivotal figure in the sci-fi community. Amazing Stories was a commercial success, and many fans would write to the editors. It wasn't uncommon for editors to receive letters from fans and then include them and publish them in the magazine. But what wasn't common was publishing the addresses of the fans that would send these letters. So Hugo actually was a bold man, and he decided to do that, which created an expansion of the sci-fi community, because pretty soon people began connecting with one another. They began to write to each other. And that's, in essence, that's the way how zines kind of became about. And because of his dedication to sci-fi and technology, the Hugo Award, which is a literary award for science fiction, was named in honor of Hugo Gernsback. All right, so the 1930s. So in the 1930s, we begin to see the rise and start of zine making. The first zine to appear was The Comet, and it appeared in May of 1930. It was produced in Chicago by Raymond Arthur Palmer and was published by the Science Correspondence Club. During this time, science fiction has a genre in literature, which, as I mentioned earlier, was excelling, and many fans from the genre created clubs, such as the Science Correspondence Club, being one of them. And members soon began to merge their clubs with other clubs, and local members began to meet. But zine making was a platform that connected them to a broader audience and fan base. Like I mentioned, zines were produced by fans interested in science fiction. However, the topics were nonfiction based and explored scientific matters. Club participants believed that their passion for science fiction will ultimately lead to career opportunities in the scientific field. And then by the fourth edition of the comet, it was renamed Cosmology after Palmer had announced a contest to rename the issue. The mimeograph or the mimeograph was a duplicating press. It was popularly used for zine making. It was an affordable tool for zine makers that allowed them to produce large quantities of printed materials to share with other fans and readers. Thomas Edison invented an electric pen and duplicating press in 1876, but by the mid 1880s, Albert Blake Dick, which was the founder of A.B. Dick Company, he collaborated with Edison to improve the quality of Edison's invention. And then later it was named the Edison Mimeograph. So exactly what is this tool? It was a stencil duplicator machine that pushed ink through a stencil onto paper. And then basic models were cranked by hand while other models used an electric motor. And the cost of this machine was anywhere between $50 to $100. And then really quickly, I can show you, let's see, if it'll pop up. And then, oh, here it is. I'm trying to show you all a video of it. I don't think it's working though. There it goes. So that's basically the way the tool worked. So they would crank it and it would push out all the different copies. So in the 1940s, the technology for zine making does begin to change. Um, in 1938, Chester Carlson, he did develop a concept and a model for the first zerographic copier. The only problem with his model was that it wasn't a functioning model. So whenever he would take it to different companies, because he couldn't provide something that worked, they didn't quite want to invest in it. It took him about 10 years for him to get an engineer that can make a functioning model. And then he, with the help of a nonprofit organization, he was able to market his new technology. So the Battelle Memorial Institute was the nonprofit that invested in manufacturing the machine. And then it partnered with Haloid, which we now know as Xerox. And then the functioning model that came to be known at the time was the Xerox Copier Model A. And that was first introduced in 1949. So with the introduction of this new technology, the mimeograph or the mimeograph began to, it started dwindling and eventually it just became obsolete. In the 1940s, we also began to see a change in the themes for zine making. So some consider the first queer zine to be Vice Versa, which was published by Lisa Ben, which was not only a pen name, but also an anagram for lesbian. And then the creator's real name was Edith Ade. She was inspired to create Vice Versa after observing a variety of magazines available for different subcultures and communities, and nothing that really resonated with the queer community. So that's what led her to create her zine. The magazine ran from 1947 through 1948. And then it was labeled as being the first America's first gayest magazine. Each month she would type 5 carbon copies of Vice Versa and 1 original copy. But due to laws about obscenity under which queer content was considered obscene at the time, she stopped mailing out copies of the magazine. And then she ceased publication altogether after she left her job, where she wrote for the magazine. Eid was also part of the science fiction fandom and contributed cartoons and other content to science fiction fanzines using the pseudonym Tigrina. In the 1950s, Lee Hoffman, whose real name was Shirley Bell Hoffman, she was a devoted sci-fi fan who edited various fanzines in her lifetime. She began her ventures with Quandary, which was a sci-fi zine. And she was the leading editor in 1951. During this time, folk music began to gain traction, so she decided to publish the first folk zine, which was The Caravan. The New York Folklore Center was a popular place for folk music enthusiasts to learn about current topics related to folk music, and that's where Lee Hoffman found the audience for her zine. In the 1950s, the beat movement or generation emerged. This was a counterculture literary and social movement primarily influenced by jazz musicians. The literature produced during this time was often experimental and included obscene language. Zines allowed those involved in the beat movement to share their ideas outside of the mainstream press. At the same time, folk music was becoming increasingly popular and became the subject of many zines. In the late 1950s, the Xerox company introduced the first office copier. And then the image on the left is an ad for that Xerox copy machine. The Haloid Xerox 914 made it possible to get sharp permanent copies on ordinary paper. And this revolutionary copier could copy up to 9 by 14 inches and make 7 copies at a time per minute. And it was easy to duplicate zines. So in the 60s, there was continued progression of zine making that focused on many topics. Zines about other music genres were emerging. Crawdaddy, launched in 1966 by Paul Williams. It focused on distributing news about rock and roll music. The zine helped launch the careers of many musicians and provided an arena for other music genres as it later evolved into a full functioning magazine. In the 1960s, we also have fans of Star Trek beginning to publish their own zines about the series. Spockanalia was the first zine dedicated to the popular sci-fi TV series, and during its second issue, it did feature letters from the cast. Because there was a large following for the TV series when the show was canceled, many of the fans used the zines as an outlet for them to lobby and bringing back the show, and it actually helped them because they ended up bringing the TV series back. In the 70s, we begin to see a lot of copy shops, which provide access and affordability for copy making. Zine makers relied on copy shops for production. In the 70s and 80s, you also see a rise of the punk scene. And because there is a rise in the punk scene, there's also a surge in punk zines. And it is at this time that the appearance of zines begin to change, which introduced them to the DIY movement. With the punk scene dominating this era, zines acquired a grungy look and featured a mix of typed and handwritten notes. Some of the popular punk scenes during this time include Sniffing Glue, which was published in July of 76, 48 Thrills, published in November of 76, and then Bondage, which was published in December of 76. In 1990, the Riot Girl movement began in the Pacific Northwest in response to a male majority in the growing mainstream punk scene of the area. Riot Girl bands emerged with a focus on feminism and activism in their music, which was echoed in the zines produced as part of this movement too. The 90s also saw a rise in zines by Black women and women of color who critiqued riot girl culture and shared their perspective and experiences by discussing race and gender. And then during this decades, zines also began to appear online as e-zines. And then in the mid 80s, entering the 90s, uh, the LGBT community, they were facing a lot of struggles as they were being excluded from multiple communities, including the punk scene. This led to the creation of queer zines that provided an outlet for people to express themselves and challenge the stereotypes that were created by heteronormative ideals. Queer zines that emerged in the late 80s and 90s include um, JD's, which was a scene that challenged the new wave of punk rock music and questioned the principles that founded punk ideology. We also have queercore, also known as homocore, which focused on topics like those of JD's and established a space for LGBT people within the punk scene. They continue to defy gender politics and commercial ideologies of homosexuality. And then zines in the 21st century, they continue to thrive and are celebrated at festivals. Some libraries and bookstores provide zine collections. Zines continue to focus on themes like sci-fi and music, but they've also grown to satisfy various subcultural movements and often serve as a platform for marginalized communities. Um, and then This does conclude my presentation, but I would like to invite all of you to the Ontario Art Book Fair, which is Saturday, March 29th. It starts at 11. The presentation that Zima and I are doing starts at 11:30. It's from 11:30 all the way through 12:30. But thank you. Does anybody have questions?
Thank you. That's very interesting. And I wonder if you got your research from specific websites or where can we find more of this information?
I can send you a list of the sites where I obtained information. I did use several of them, different articles as well. But yeah, I can create a list and send it to you. And then that way you can share with the group.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to present and I think my part's gonna be on modern day zines and zines in public libraries. And what about Maribella? What would Maribella's part be again?
Marabella, she'll be sharing some of the content with me. Unfortunately, she couldn't make it today.
Oh, no problem. Is anyone here thinking of going? It's Ontario, close to anyone. It's a free event. And what's your position at the library again, Yesenia?
One of the adult services librarian.
Oh, nice. And at the City of Ontario Library, do you have zines in your library?
No, unfortunately, we don't. Um, we are a small library, and some of the things that they focus on is purchasing things that have frequent publications. And because zines oftentimes aren't published quickly enough, that's one of the reasons why we don't have them at the moment. I don't know if that may change in the future, but in Ontario, there is an interest for zines. We do have zine workshops from time to time. We had one recently in January. I did a zine workshop last month with the museum at one of their art walks. Like I mentioned, the community is interested in zine and zine making.
Well, that'd be nice to maybe have a small little library from zines the community makes and have that available for other community members to see when the community, the ones that made it aren't there, then to inspire other zine makers. That could be cool and
Yeah, for
free.
the workshop we had last month, I did take samples of some of the zines that people made in the workshop we had the month before. And then the library also provided us samples of different zines that have been published in different topics for people to view.
Oh, nice. And we have some comments and questions in the chat. So John's tabling there. Oh, John, can you tell us how that came about? Was there a call for tablers or were you invited or?
Yeah, there was just a general call that went out from I think Rebecca, she's working with the Ontario Museum, and that she's helped organize that. So she just put a general call out. And yeah, at art book fairs, my table is really different than from Zine fests, because I have some zines that are more, I spend more time on. So that's what I put on my table, my street art zine and some of my, a lot of my mini zines that I package into other, like I call them a multi-zine. So our book fair is a little bit different from a zine fest, but there are a lot of zines there. Sometimes you see more, the price points can be a little bit higher at an art book fair. People will be selling things for $20, $25 instead of just $2. But there's always a mix of everything, especially when Rebecca's organize it, because she makes lots of zines.
Has this event happened every year? Ontario Art Book Fair?
No,
Uh,
this is their first time making
yeah,
a art book fair.
back before the pandemic, that museum, the History and Art Museum, they did have one zine fest, but the people who organized that moved on, and so this art book fair, yeah, this is the first time it's ever happened that I know of.
Well, that'll be fun to check out. And I guess similar to Zine Fest, art book fairs happen all over. And I've been to the LA one. I don't know if I've been to other ones. Well, another question in the chat from Steph is, are there any copies of the early queer zines available in a library or archive collection? I actually know that there are some in Sacramento. I visited the Sacramento Community Library and Archives. I think it's called the Lavender Library. And I was there for a tour when we had the California Library Association annual conference in Sacramento. I believe it was last year. And they did have a section of zines, and some were archival, and everything in the library and archives were queer. So that was really cool to see. I'll put a link in the chat. What about you, Yesenia? Do you know where some are, if they are any?
I can share a link. I did come across in my research for a website that does archive scenes, actually written in most recent years, uh like in the mid 2000s, by 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 people of color. So I can share that link.
And the zine workshop you hosted recently, what was the topic or theme? Or maybe we can recreate it virtually and make some zines today.
So for that workshop, it was an introduction to zines. A lot of the participants that came that day, it was their first time learning about zine making. Um, they could choose any theme that they wanted. For some people, I did ask them what their zine was about. For example, there was a woman that really liked cats, so her zine was about cats. There was another person that focused on a number. They kept focusing on the number 3. So that's what that person's zine was about. Another one focused on photography and different images. So everybody chose their own theme for the zine workshop.
Do you make zines outside of the library? Do you have zines you self-publish and trade or sell or table?
No, I don't. I did make a zine that was inspired by the comment, the first zine published in the 1930s. And then I ended up writing a short story in it because with zines, they can be about various different things and you can use different mediums. So I chose to write a short story and then I included different pictures. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, so this is the one. I don't know, can everybody see? Oh, let me. Uh, can everybody see the zine?
Yes, I see it's a mini zine, Comet Sun Gazers.
Yeah, so this is the one that I created prior to the workshop as a sample, and then I did draw inspiration, as I mentioned, from the first zine ever published. And then, yeah, inside I wrote a short story. Um, Basically, it's about a group of people so known as sun gazers, and they live in a planet that's very distant from the sun. So they've always desired to be close to it, to, in a way, feel the warmth of the sun, to feel the proximity and things like that. And then it focuses on a main character who decides she engineers a rocket to that's going to be used on an expedition to get close to the sun. And then because of the strict laws in her planet, there's a reason why she cannot embark on this journey. So then she finds a way around it to be part of it. And the laws that I created in my short story were that if you were of a specific age or considered too young, that you couldn't travel on those type of expeditions. So then, like I mentioned, she finds a way around it, goes on the expedition, and then I kind of left it there, kind of with a little um, kind of like open-ended conclusion where she happens to meet somebody and then she falls in love and now she doesn't know if the journey that she embarked on was a journey that she feels proud of or something that she now regrets because she ends up losing the person that she fell for during this expedition. So that's the short sci-fi story I created.
Oh, nice. And that short story's all in the zine?
Yeah, I wrote it in the zine. It's too small, but um that's what I wrote. And then I tried to include images that resemble the theme of the story.
Yeah, that's really inspiring also for maybe future authors or aspiring authors that they can start from a zine as kind of the skeleton based idea of their novel or book.
Mhm.
Do you write novels or books?
Not, no. I did go to school for dramatic writing and um I got a master's for television, film, and theater, but I tell myself that I lost interest when I gained more interest in working in a library, so then I stopped writing. But when I was writing the story, I kept telling myself, okay, just a few words, but I continued going and I couldn't stop until it was complete.
Oh, that's nice. And now you can, if that's your first zine like that, I mean, you can make it a series or a bunch of different short stories, or that's where you're, because since that it ties libraries and writing and
Yeah.
zines, that's cool. Thank you for sharing. We have 9 people total. If anyone wants to share what they're working on. I know we just attended LA Zine Fest. At least I know John was there, I was there, Steph was there. Did you hear about LA Zine Fest, Yesenia, this past weekend?
I didn't attend, but I would like to know more.
Oh yeah, it was 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. outside the Broad. And yeah, it was over 7,000 people over 2 days attended. I mean, almost 7,000 people over 2 days attended. And it broke a record for the museum. Oh, you volunteered Saturday? Oh, do you mind letting us know, Alex, how it was from your point of view? I'd be interested.
Yeah, I volunteered on Saturday, and I thought it was really wonderful. It was really overwhelming. There were so many people there, but everyone was really kind. I was like wrangling people for panels, but these 3 panelists didn't have anyone to look over their table while they were presenting. So I did, and I'd never tabled before, which was really stressful just because they didn't have a price sheet or anything. So we really went through basics very fast, but everyone was so kind. Like I would tell people, I was kind of like on a loop the entire time I was at the table. I was like, I can't answer everything, but I can answer whatever you need. But yeah, everyone who came was lovely.
Do you remember what their panel was on or what their table name was?
Yes, they were the panel on disabilities, and I'm trying to remember their name because they were a collective,
Oh yeah,
but
the LA Spoonie Collective. I've seen their presentation before. So that's nice. That must have been day one outside.
yes, exactly.
And I know inside they were presenting in the Oculus Hall, which is the second floor of the museum, and they have a nice big screen and some mics. And I was stationed in that room all day, day two on the second day. So I helped with the audio and tech, and it was nice to just watch everyone's panels and workshops. And I tried to live stream from the LA Zine Fest social media to capture some of it. And one of the sessions was about breath work and meditation. So that was like a calming panel for day two of
I
Zine
love that.
Fest.
Was it close to the end of the day for day two?
It was towards the beginning, so it was still good because
I love
it
it.
was my second day. It was my first day. I volunteered myself to DJ. So I was standing all day spinning records from as soon as I set up to 5 p.m. Security cut us off right at 5 p.m. So I think I was started DJing around 10 a.m. So it was like 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. nonstop playing music outside, and it was a little windy. I'm glad it didn't rain, but the wind did pick up and move my needle and mess up the songs a handful of times. That's okay. And then, oh, Steph, would you like to say how it was from your point of view? Were you an attendee or a volunteer or
I was an attendee. It was really interesting and uplifting, and it was just good to see people in person. I'm not great in crowds, so I got a little overwhelmed at points, but as people have already said, everyone was just so lovely. And yeah, I've got a lot of zines to look through. And yeah, it was just a very inspiring and cool day. Really enjoyed it.
Did you trade zines or buy
I didn't.
zines?
I bought quite a lot. I did have a budget put aside for the Zine Fest. Um, I didn't really think about trading zines. I've only just started to make zines again, so but I think I'm going to make it a goal for next year to have some zines to take with me and trade. Yeah, which is quite exciting to think about. But yeah, there was just some amazing zines of all kinds, some amazing art. I also got some small prints that from different people that were tabling, and just a lot of very very good stuff. And huge thanks to all the people that volunteered and organised the event. It really was fantastic.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's my third year co-organizing. This year is a group of 12 of us. I think last year was less than 6 people, but every year is a different venue, and I think we meet once or twice a week for 2 to 4 hours a week on Zoom to organize it. We started meeting in October once a week, and then closer was twice a week. So yeah, it's a lot of planning. I'm glad it was fun. And I like when I go as an attendee to bring zines that I've made to trade so that I don't have to really spend money or buy things. If I can, I want to just trade it. And I just ask people, are you up for a trade? Would you like to trade? And sometimes they will say no because the stuff they have is priced high and they don't want to trade for a high price. But I know some people have some zines there specifically for trading. So when people say, do you want to trade? They can say yes, and then they trade that zine. And then that's really fun. Yeah, bring some to trade next time. I really like that because then you can end up not spending any money and still coming away with a lot of different zines to go through. And a way you can print your zines for free is at the public library. Since City of LA, you get 25 pages per person per day. So you could probably print 25 one-sided zines. The little mini like fold like the one Yesenia showed if you had like photocopied that for free 25 times. And then if you do that every day, you get like hundreds of zines printed in a week, and that would be great for a zine fest. I'm sure could get a lot of zines. Anyone else have comments on Zine Fest? I know John was there walking around. Did you see anything special? I think you talked to a bunch of people, and how did it go?
Yeah. One of the things I thought was so interesting, this I've never seen this before, is that it was 2 days, and since you moved it into the parking garage for the second day, and both days had totally different sets of vendors, so it was almost like having two different zine fests by the same people in the same weekend. That was really cool. And having in the parking garage the second day, I went both days. I wanted to, I can't stay away from that stuff. It was awesome. I heard a lot of people comparing it to like punk shows or something, but down there with all that weird fluorescent light and stuff, it was kind of dark, had this liminal kind of spooky feeling, super crowded, but there was more room the second day. So I don't know. It was like two totally different fests in one weekend in the same like square block. I thought that was great.
Thank you. Was it too loud in the garage or was it not too loud? Like, did it echo?
No, not really. No. It was actually, even though the first day was outdoors on that lawn, it felt less crowded in the parking garage because there was more space to move around. And and the vendors had a lot of space behind them, so you didn't feel like real claustrophobic. And it wasn't too loud, and there wasn't any music. If there had been some music, that might have been pretty weird. It would have been cool too, but I'm kind of glad there wasn't music down there because it would have been too much for me. I'm like Steph. When I get in those crowds, I start to freak out a little bit. Last year, and I told you, when I saw you, when you're that last year at I had to leave because it was that kind of crowd, but it was indoors, and I just kind of freaked out and just like left. It was just too much for me. But so this time it wasn't like that. For first day because it was outside, so you don't feel like too congested, and second day because there was so much room in that parking garage that even though it was crowded, you didn't feel like trapped. So definitely a memorable LA Zine Fest. You guys did a great job. Lots of volunteers, and even like the museum people who are shepherding us downstairs. They're so professional. Like everyone had it all together. It was really well done. So congratulations, something to be proud of.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we had to pivot last minute because of the rain scare and go indoors. So I'm
Did you
glad
see
it
the
worked
little
out.
boy? Did
No,
you see that little there's like this fourth grader who like totally was hustling the thing. He like set up his own tiny little table by like a column, and he had his comic zines. He's like 11 or 10, and he's like $3 for comic zines, and all these people just like walked up and bought him. He was my favorite part.
I heard about it from the stories. I saw people's social media stories about it.
Yeah, he was great. I bought one.
Oh, nice. Yeah, and I know they had screen printing and risograph making upstairs by the panels and workshops as well. That was pretty popular. And then I saw Jody put in the chat that there's a zine and print fest happening in Fontana on March 15th. And then there's a link to it. It's the IE Print and Zine Fest, and that's going to be March 15th, 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. And it looks like it's sponsored by PBS, NPR. Oh, very interesting. So who's gonna be there? Let us know. And then if no one, or maybe someone can tell us how it is if they go. It's Saturday. It's coming up. Fontana and Ontario. And I know that the Reforma Inland Empire chapter is working on Reforma Inland Empire Zine Fest, Reforma IE Zine Fest. And they were thinking for summer. And that should be fun too. They're brainstorming if they can do it in the Cheech Marin Museum in Riverside or not.
What was the name of that group?
Reforma IE, which
Reforma
is
IE.
which is Inland Empire library workers, bilingual library workers promoting library materials and programs in English and Spanish. And they
They
want
don't have a
us,
date. They don't have a date yet.
no, they don't have a date, but they've been
Okay.
brainstorming and organizing for Reforma IE Zine Fest. So hopefully that'll happen later this year.
Awesome. Thanks for the tip.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, I'll definitely invite them to present when they're ready. And anyone else have anything to share? Like Tanya or Shatia or Any zines, making zines lately, or any zine events lately? Anyone? Any of you have gone to? In our last 10 minutes, we can just catch up on zines.
I was just going to say, if it's okay to share a little bit more, that I'm working with a friend on a second zine that is just for our friendship group. So it's just a fun thing to send around a group of friends that don't really live in the same place. We're all kind of dispersed around the US. So we're maybe doing it every 3 or 4 months, and we set a theme and get contributions from all the different friends, and then we'll collate it. It's the first time I've done it. This time the friend I'm working with did it last time, and then we just mail it out to everyone in the friend group. So it's kind of, but it's just a nice, it's full of in jokes, and yeah, it's just a nice thing to get in the mail.
That sounds really cool. Is it usually like 12 pages or more?
I think it's been about 12 pages. We've only done it once before, but it was like really popular. So, yeah, we're doing a second one.
And each person has probably a couple pages or more.
It depends. I mean, people can send in depending on how busy they are and what they've got on. We've had everything from like someone taking 2 to 3 pages to someone just sending a little picture for half a page, that kind of thing. It's just what people have got the time to do and what they want to contribute, really.
Oh, nice. And then you print it out and show other people, or you just keep it
We
like,
just we're working on the second one, so we've only done one, and at the moment it's been very focused on like the friend group, so it's a different way of getting together. So I don't think it's really gone outside the friend group. I'm not sure it'd make much sense. What if it would make much sense to other people? But it's just a fun, it's a fun project, a little bit different, I think.
that kind of reminds me of how I actually got into zines, because in high school, my friend would go around the friend group and ask people to contribute to her zine called Luna and Tuna, and anyone could do whatever they wanted. So they could do a joke or a recipe or a movie review or a poem or a crossword or a doodle, and then she would compile it all together. And then once it was ready, distribute it to everyone that participated. And so that was really cool. And that's how I got into zines in the 90s as a teenager.
That's really cool. You just inspired me with a recipe, actually. I've not thought about that.
And I think one presentation I did for school teachers in Southern California on zines, um, one of the organizers of the conference for the school teachers, or maybe it was school librarians, they make a zine that they give out in the mail every holiday season instead of like a holiday card or a New Year's card. It's like a mini zine. And I thought that's really cool too, to send out at the end of the year, like a holiday mini zine of updates or winter doodles and things. Since I know some people make it a habit to send like family photo postcards or things like that maybe you have to pay for. But if you just made your own zine and sent it in the mail, I think that's like a little more personalized and different. Thank you again, Yesenia.
Yeah,
And
no
we're,
problem. Do you mind if I ask you questions about your
oh,
zine
sure.
collection at the library?
Yeah, go
So
ahead.
I'm curious to know, what are the guidelines for the zines at your library? Are they requirements where they need to be published set amount of times throughout the year? Are there different themes that you search for? Like what is the process at your library?
For now, it's like anything and everything. And we actually have a zine collection policy page that I just put in the chat. And our zine collections get built with donations mostly, and it says the library accepts donations of zines but cannot guarantee that donated items will be added to the collection. Zines added to the collection should be in good condition, and so library staff will assess donations according to library's material selection criteria and may use their discretion to decline the donation, either based on the number of items donated, content, or condition. So, for example, I have a young adult collection and I'm the young adult librarian, so I put it in the young adult area. So I'll screen zines out of my collection if they're explicitly adult, if it's explicitly um obviously adult, but if it's not, then I put it in. And we do have other collections because we have 73 locations and about 10 out of 73 have a physical zine collection. So we have other librarians that are adult librarians and they will have it in their adult collection. So I can maybe send it to them. And then I don't think we have a children's librarian that's sponsoring a collection yet, but I think eventually that'd be nice if every library that wanted one could have a children's zine collection, a young adult zine collection, an adult zine collection, just like we already do for graphic novels and manga and fiction, nonfiction. I think it should be the same with zines. Since zines are, as John showed us, made by 11-year-olds, we should have that out there. And then when people do have budgets, like at my first branch, I was able to take money from the budget, acquisition budget, and I went in person to a comic book store that also sold zines, and I went in person to an indie bookstore that also sold zines, and I used my budget to buy anything I could find that looked cool or maybe was local, like talked about LA. And yeah, I went to Cuba when I was at Long Beach. I took a tour with the American Library Association of Libraries in Cuba. That was our excuse for going, was for educational tour with the ALA. And so while I was there, I looked for zines. We went to the Havana um, book fair, the Havana book fair, and I asked everyone where are the zines, and I found a place called Ediciones Vigía, and they made like cartoneros, which are more like art books from recycled cardboard, and but to me those were close enough to zines, so I bought those and I brought them to the Long Beach Public Library where I was working at the time, and those were not circulated since they're from Cuba. They kept those as reference to look at and not take home. But mostly I want the zines to circulate so people can take them home, show friends and family, and that people know if you don't want to buy zines, you can borrow them for free, just like books, and to make zines more accessible. So they're not just at Zine Fest or just at art book fairs, or that way you can know where to go, as the library can have them to browse, and it's unique. I like that it's non-mainstream, non-commercial. It doesn't have an ISBN on it. That's why I like having it in the library circulating. Um, I'll talk more about it in person on March 29th. So hope to see everyone in Ontario, and thank you for joining us. And we used to do these twice a month. Now I think we're doing them once a month. And we can look forward to April, my birthday month. Okay, so we'll have a fun April zine club, and I'll let everyone know. And thank you again, Yesenia, for presenting. I really like the history and seeing the YouTube video was cool also. And then seeing how there's the original Xerox machine, and then Star Trek. I did actually grow up watching Star Trek Next Generation. So I would have at that age, if I knew about zines as a child, I would have made Star Trek Next Generation zines. But I didn't know about zines until I was a teenager, really. So thank you, everyone, and have a good rest of your first week of March. Yes. Bye.